Test. Perfect. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Sewell, and today we are starting the Extemporaneous Public Speaking Finals. As a disclaimer, for each of our participants, they are going to start out with a practice of saying, "I believe in the future of agriculture," to test their mics and make sure everything sounds correct. So with that disclaimer being said, so you know it's coming, our first speaker in the finals today is Riley Jones, representing the Miles City FFA chapter, and her topic is how do consumer trends shape agricultural production decisions?
I believe in the future of agriculture. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my SAE. See, I am a partner with my sister in my SAE. And my sister, when she was a freshman in high school, seen a market. She's seen families not being able to finish the entirety of their steak. So what she did is she decided, why not make the steak smaller? She decided to raise miniature cattle instead of the large frame cattle that are currently being sold in the market. She did this because she's seen a niche market that was lacking. We had family and friends who had 5 people in the family, but they could only eat 2 steaks between them. So she fixed it. My question was, how can consumers change the decisions that agriculturists make? My sister did this, and this is what I'm going to talk to you about today, 3 things. I'm going to tell you about what the consumer wants today, what is good for the producer because of this, and how it is bad for the consumer to follow these trends. So what does the consumer want today? Well, currently the consumer wants mostly 3 things: ethical practices, clarity from the producer, and a sustainable practice. It is said by 2050 that the age range, 80% of the age range is going to be above 80 years old or below 15 years old. Those 2 age ranges need healthy food. They need locally grown, ethical food that the consumer wants today. 38% of the consumer states that they are willing to pay 5% more for a locally grown, ethical food than if the other option. That is what the producer needs to follow. And it is good for the producer to do this. By the producer doing this, it allows more profitability and more local brand recognition. It allows for more loyalty and ensures viability. My sister seen this in her SAE when she was just a freshman. She's seen that she needed to build clarity with the customer, so she invited them down to view the livestock. She sent them videos of the miniature cattle and showed them that this was a transparent operation. She built that niche market, and that is what the producer as a whole needs to do to ensure agriculture continues. But what is bad for the producer? A lot of producers are heritage-grown families. They are passed down and have legacy farms. 98% of the farms in America are family-owned. But from 2023 to 2024, 20,000 farms were lost because they could not keep up with the consumer demand. They lost these because they could not continue. A lot of these older generational farms do not want to change their practices because they do not want to lose their heritage. And with the continued growing of the technological age and the abrupt change that comes from the consumer demand, that is what happens. as agriculturists, we need to continue to change with the consumer so we can stay reliable. We need to be like my sister and the current SAE that I have and find those niche markets so that we can keep on top of the market and stay with the consumer. The consumer gives these our demands, and we are the ones that follow them. Thomas Jefferson stated that the foundation of America is made from agriculture. He stated the wisest pursuit of man is to be an agriculturist. If we want to continue being viewed as the wisest pursuit of man, we need to follow the demand. Thank you.
You spoke of consumer trends shaping the production decisions. What kind of trends showed your choice in SAE projects?
Some of the biggest trends that showed ours was that the consumer that we were selling to, our customers, wanted a locally sourced beef. They wanted beef that was smaller and easier for their kids to eat, easier for their grandparents to eat. They wanted clarity from the consumer. That's why we sent them videos, why we invited down. Heck, we even let them name the cattle, because it allowed clarity and transparency from us, the producer, to show that that we were doing an ethical practice, which is the current trend of today.
You spoke specifically on the cattle industry and a shift in your project. What are some other trends outside of the cattle business that you're seeing consumers driving today?
So one of the big trends that are also coming today is organic agriculture, organic farming. They don't want spray on the crops. They want different type of crops to come into the market. This is a big part, this is another huge trend that is coming today, and one that should also be followed by the agriculturist to be, like, there's multiple, and there's going to be more to pop up in the farming practices.
What are some of the challenges that farmers and ranchers may face in trying to address these consumer challenges, and how can state or national resources help them in marketing directly to consumers?
So one of the big challenges is cost, as well as just how agriculture works in general. I say the consumer wants organic farms, but it is hard to have organic farms because weeds take over the farmland, and then you no longer produce a product for the consumer. Some amenities to help with this, there have been multiple foundation and grants to help farmers start up these type of farms to help mitigate these issues. I know that my family, instead of using spray or fertilizer, have been talking about using manure from the feedlot that we have to help cover the fields. This helps the consumer, but also keeps our costs lower, facing one of those challenges. The state will help with this with grants and recognition, as well as getting that name out there.
We talked about opportunities, or challenges. Let's not talk about opportunities. With you being a young producer yourself, where do you see future markets opening up for FFA members, their SAEs, and as you go out into the industry?
A lot of future markets are going to come from viewing these niche type markets that we see as FFA members. I stated that my SAE was hitting on one of these niche markets with the miniature livestock. But there are many types of SAEs and FFA members that are seeing these and broaching these. One of my other SAEs is using pumpkin seeds as a natural dewormer and researching the properties of that. That opens up markets for, instead of using chemicals in livestock, instead you're using a natural-based variety from something as simple as jack-o'-lanterns from Halloween. This opens up many markets, and I know that there are many SAEs in America that will continue to open up into those niche markets and change the trends and follow the trends and allow for agriculture to continue in the future.
Do you see a situation where consumers might ask something of producers that is not possible based on lack of information about farming practices?
That is a definite real issue. In one of my last questions, I talked about how cost can really hinder the producer, and the consumer does not understand that because they do not.
That's time.
Perfect. Thank you.
We are now bringing out our second speaker for today's finals. Once again, she will be saying, "I believe in the future of agriculture," to test her mic. So next up, we have Alyssa Crago, representing the Columbus FFA chapter, and her topic is, "Should agricultural education be a required part of K-12 education? Why or why not?"
I believe in the future of agriculture.
Let's try that again.
I believe in the future of agriculture. I believe in the future of agriculture. This is a sentence that is the first part of the FFA Creed, something that us FFA members are ingrained with from the moment that we zip up our blue jackets to the moment that we take them off. But what is the future of agriculture? When I think about this question, I think about the question that I am posed with today. Should agricultural education be required in K through 12 curriculum? Now, according to a study by the USDA in 2025, 92% of teachers across the United States said that some form of agricultural education was important to implement into students' everyday life. Now, on the flip side of this, a study done in the same year by the National FFA organization said that there had been a 27% decrease in the amount of people going into a post-secondary education for agriculture in any sort of career. This is a big change. And we are posed with the question that even though teachers believe that it is important, is it truly being instilled in the correct manner, and should it be required heavier? That is where I come in. Now, agriculture is not just for rural communities anymore. There are suburban and urban fields that have increased their amount of agricultural production, and people that want to get involved in agriculture but just don't know how. Agricultural education connects students and fosters that connection with food literacy, sustainability awareness, and connects them to real-world applications and possible STEM careers that they could pursue in the future. Without this education, they would have never gotten that opportunity in order to pursue those careers, or just never gotten the education that allowed them to be successful. With every real-world application in anything, there are always challenges. Challenges with requiring this agricultural education across the board remain as packed school schedules. Students aren't always available to take these classes, and they don't always want to with as packed as their schedules are. Another challenge can be funding. I know that in rural communities and rural public schools specifically, there's often not a lot of flexibility in terms of funding and resources that may be needed to require this agricultural education. Another challenge can be a need for trained teachers. Going back to this stat from the National FFA organization, that decrease in the amount of people pursuing post-secondary education allows for a lack of teachers and a lack of experienced teachers that are needed to truly give students the education that they deserve. Even though there are challenges within implementing a requirement for agricultural education across the board, I do believe that requiring it would allow the next generation of agriculturalists to be prepared to manage their resources efficiently, to ensure food security and personal and leadership growth that they would not receive if they didn't have such education. As an FFA member myself, I do think that we have the ability and we have the power to truly make that change, make that shift, and advocate for agricultural education across not just the United States, but other countries as well. By requiring agricultural education, we can bridge the gap between classroom learning and essential life skills. To another part of the creed that really has resonated with me for my 4 years of high school. An inborn fondness for those associations which, even in times of discomfort, I cannot deny. Even with the challenges posed with implementing an agricultural education requirement, the pros of implementing such a thing outweigh the cons in an astronomical amount that I believe is the most important thing. Thank you.
You spoke of agriculture education as a standalone type curriculum. How could it be implemented in the classes that already exist, especially K through 6?
Well, like I had mentioned previously, there are a lot of STEM careers that do include agricultural education. So therefore, it could be implemented into your science classes, your English classes. Just those skills and those communication and connective abilities will really allow for, even if you don't have the funding to create an entire other class or an entire other curriculum, you'll still be able to implement agricultural education into the classes that you already have. Now, this can also be used with just pretty much every single class that there is, not just your science and English. Those are just the two main big ones that you could really rope it into and really resonate with the agricultural education.
As a future leader of agriculture in Montana and in the nation, you talked about addressing the issues. So what are some actionable items that you can personally take to address these issues, whether that's in your hometown or in your home state?
Right. When looking at what we can do as FFA members in Montana and what I can do specifically in my community, there are a ton of programs that are available. There's Ag in the Classroom, there's farm-to-table resources that you can research, you can learn about, and you can educate. So I have taken experiences where I have gone down to our local elementary school and educated 4th and 5th graders about agriculture with just that information that I was able to pull from those resources. So I think that if we as FFA members use the resources that are in front of us and use the education that we have gained from our knowledgeable ag teachers, we'll be able to educate the public and educate those around us, even if they're not fully ready to make that transition yet.
One of the challenges that we see is a shortage of agriculture teachers. How do we work with school districts and with our higher education universities to be able to make sure there's a steady supply of ag teachers in these schools?
Right, that's an excellent question. And as I had brought up, there's actually a decrease in the amount of people going into just any field, but specifically wanting to teach about agriculture. And I think that that is for many reasons. Part of the reason is the pay. You cannot deny the fact that ag teachers do not make as much as they probably should. However, I do believe that there are different steps that we can take in order to guarantee that people want to pursue degrees. I think FFA is an excellent organization for sparking that want, sparking that leadership. I think I personally have been encouraged to pursue a degree in agriculture, which as a 14-year-old I would have never imagined myself doing. I just think that really increasing, giving as many opportunities as we can, and increasing those post-secondary institutions. I mean, there is no reason why we as FFA members can't go and educate those members as well, even though that might be a little bit intimidating. But I just think that, especially as such a big organization as we are, we can truly advocate for those teachers, truly spark that want to pursue that degree, and make sure that they're given all of the resources they need to want to do that and to be inspired. And I think just appreciate our ag teachers that we have already, and appreciate what they do for us and how they inspire us and how they really move to have more agricultural education just in general. And I think just appreciating and advocating for those we already have and sparking those younger members of our community, which could be our future leaders of today.
How have you seen agriculture education impact your life and your future plans?
Like I said, when I was 14, I was involved in 4-H, but not necessarily FFA. When I went to my first ever FFA meeting, I didn't have a lot of friends. I wasn't very passionate about it. I didn't really want to do it. I didn't have that drive. And the more competitions that I went to, the more that I learned, and the more that I opened my eyes to how beautiful agriculture truly is, I was inspired, and that drive was sparked into me, and it's going to lead into my post-secondary plans when I pursue a degree in an agriculture field. And I think that without the agriculture education I got specifically in high school, I would not have that drive or have that want. I think that it has influenced my life in many ways. Even growing up from a rural community, just getting that extra education is truly what made the difference in my life.
Time.
Thank you.
Our third speaker in the Extemporaneous Finals is Adelaide Meyer, representing the Stevensville FFA chapter. And her topic is, why is agricultural literacy essential in a society where fewer people are directly involved in farming?
I believe in the future of agriculture. I hate agriculture. Whoa, that was probably a trigger for a lot of people in this room. And I know when I heard that phrase this summer at a summer camp, I was taken aback. How could somebody hate something that feeds them? An industry that is so prominent in this world that even the clothes you wear and the food you eat involve it every single day. It took me a moment to realize that that hate wasn't truly hate. It was misunderstanding, and that's where agriculture literacy comes into play. To review the need for agricultural literacy in our society, First, let's understand the extent of which the importance of ag plays into our modern society. Narrow this down to an evaluation of the gap between the producer and the consumer. And finally, learn together the importance of ag literacy in our modern communities. First, we have to evaluate the extent of the future of agriculture. A big misconception in our world is that we're just plows and cows, as you've probably heard the term before, with often around 64% of teens saying they don't know someone in agriculture. However, this stat is not considering the depth in which our industry covers. With around 1.3 billion people involved in the agri-food system sector of our world, agriculture is prominent and relevant. With this, we also have to understand that the gap between the producer and the consumer is only continuing to grow, with producers facing challenges year after year, whether it be finances, mental health, the rise of technology, and opposing groups. Agriculture is relevant, but also strong. Now, to understand the gap between the producer and the consumer. This is all perspective. Now, whether it be the levels and layers in between the producer and the consumer, the farmer and the table, it's easy to see how the gap only continues to grow. Whether it be social media fighting against the producers, opposing groups building ways to go against the farmer and their traditions, 19 to 36% of teens saying that they're not familiar with careers outside of farming and agriculture. This is a concerning statistic. But agricultural literacy is here to combat this. And you might be asking, what is ag literacy? Ag literacy is the extent of the evaluation of someone's basic understanding of agriculture. Now, you may know what it is to be in a field, or you may know what it is to be in a lab working on new fertilizers and seeds. That's all agriculture. With such a big, beautiful, and broad industry, we can capitalize on it through ag literacy. Ag Literacy Week is March 16th through the 20th. It was through 2026, and we'll be back again in 2027. By utilizing the tools of agricultural literacy in our world today, we can promote agricultural in a society where it seems to be declining. This week was celebrated throughout the country and prominently displayed within the book Seasons on the Farm by Chelsea Tornetto. This book showed the weather and the seasons changes in a small children's picture book. But the connection is really where it came into play. Farmers and agricultural leaders across the nation were able to go into elementary schools to read this to young children so that they could be a part in this community in building the future of agriculture. Through promotional tools like social media, newspapers, and other advocation, ag literacy can remain prominent in developing the agricultural role today. My community has what we call the 4th grade farm fair. This activity involves 4th graders coming out to the fairgrounds learning about dairy, sheep, goats, swine, branding, rope making, and other agricultural industries that help develop Montana. Through these promotional activities, ag literacy can remain prominent in our world today. Ultimately, I think it's important to note that yes, I heard that this person said, "I hate agriculture," and I addressed it. Through the change in perspective, through understanding, because ag literacy is all about understanding. Through this, I was able to reason with the person and develop my argument on why agriculture is relevant in our world today. We talked about how much he loved his grandfather, a wheat farmer, and came to a conclusion that agriculture is something to be loved. So I encourage you to be a part of your agricultural community. Promote agriculture for the farm and the table. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes, thank you. You talked about bridging the gap between the producer and consumer, and you talked about resources available that you can advocate for. I'm curious, can you give specific examples of some major misconceptions that are currently out there against the agriculture industry?
So some specific misconceptions about the agricultural industry revolve especially around the harvesting of animals. I personally own my own vertically integrated swine operation where I both raise the animals and I process them. I utilize social media tools, and I've learned through this that people are a bit afraid because of the myths that they've been told about agriculture and what for specifically harvesting means. Harvesting, for example, is a humane process, but it has a lot of shadows surrounding it, building these misconceptions. Using tools like I had mentioned with social media and ag literacy can teach that this is not an inhumane process, that instead it's a part of our industry, and we should capitalize on agriculture's importance to the world. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
How do you recommend spreading agriculture literacy to urban areas, specifically adults in urban areas that aren't in an educational setting?
Yes, so I did briefly touch on youth especially and youth in rural areas, but also comes the importance of urban areas and adults. Through these teachings, we often rely on our modern tools. So like I mentioned, social media. That is an aspect that many urban adults are involved in. With its growth, you are able to contribute and provide a positive image of agriculture when done well. Promoting through TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and other social media platforms can be deeply relevant for agriculture today. With this, we can also utilize tools like organizations and groups that promote agricultural literacy, meeting with those adults and teaching them the importance of ag. Basic conversations can go a long ways too. Whether it be the example that I used with a teen in my age, showing your perspective in a calm, cool, and collected way can go a long ways. Thank you.
Agriculture is a dynamic industry, and as we look to promote it on a united front, how do we work with both sides and competitive groups in advancing ag literacy at all levels?
American farming, especially, and agriculture has been built on a foundation of community, trust, and understanding. With this, it's important to keep our traditions in mind. Agriculture is built on good morals. Through this, when communicating with other people, it's not about anger, it's about perspective and respect. Yes, the other party might get angry. Yes, it might be tense. But all at the end of the day, we're farmers and ranchers trying to feed the world. And the outside parties are being fed by our contributions to society. When it comes to perspective, it's a hard topic to address. But whether it be communicating just one-on-one or speaking to an audience, agriculture is rooted in this truth and good morals. So, by advocating without anger, without resentment, and focusing on the future can go a long ways. Does that answer your question?
How is agriculture literacy going to impact the agriculture industry in the future?
When it comes to the connection between agricultural literacy and specifically that ag industry, we have to have all people on our sides. When it comes to agricultural literacy, it's about broadening the knowledge of the importance of agriculture. With the misconceptions surrounding the world, there are a lot of people and organizations fighting against agriculture. It's easy to see when you look into our legislation, when you look into your daily world, when you open your phone. But with ag literacy and proving the importance of agriculture, it connects to the ag industry, supporting funds, supporting lobbying, supporting legislation. All of these help give the farmer another dollar to feed another belly. Thank you. Thank you.
We do have one remaining participant, and our timing, I messed up slightly, so we will have a slight pause until our fourth participant comes up. Okay, we are back and we have our fourth and final presenter in extemporaneous public speaking. We have Lily Bingaman representing the Conrad FFA chapter, and her topic is, what role should FFA members play in improving public understanding of agriculture?
I believe in the future of agriculture. Sound good? Can you guys all hear me? Okay, perfect. Ready? You might be wondering why I'm standing up here with my back faced to you right now. Well, it's for one reason: to look at my amazing jacket. At the top, I have my beautiful state, and at the bottom, I have my chapter. But most importantly, what's in the middle is agriculture. FFA members are so important to agriculture. Understanding the public importance and being ambassadors, being ag ambassadors, must I say. Now let me run you through this scenario. You moved to Montana from California. I mean, you're California, no one even wants you here in the first place, but you've never seen agriculture. I mean, you look out and you're like, what's all that yellow stuff? What the heck? I mean, it smells like a cow just like took a dump outside. What the heck, where am I? And you go to school. You learn that the American Farm Bureau teaches you that 2% feeds the 98%. How crazy. I mean, how can that happen? Your teacher comes up to you and says, Lily, I think you're absolutely amazing public speaker and I want you to join FFA. Okay, cool. I mean, I've never heard of this before. And you think to yourself, how can I, as an FFA member, show agriculture? I'm not a farmer, I'm not a rancher, but you learn how amazing this organization can be. Through FFA, I was aware of agriculture. Now I know that doesn't make sense yet, but through becoming an officer and becoming a member, I learned from other members who played a crucial role of being an ag ambassador. As E.M. Tiffany once said in the second paragraph of the Creed, I believe that to live and work on a good farm or to be engaged in other agricultural pursuits is pleasant as well as challenging. Being in FFA and learning, I understand that agriculture isn't all sunshine and rainbows. I learned that farmers often deal with stress, depression, anxiety, and even in worst cases, suicide. As an FFA member, in providing that public appearance and knowledge to others, I learned. Now, I know it might not be a hint or a surprise, but this is actually not a story. This was me. I moved here from California to Montana as a 7th grader, and I had no idea the farm to food plate process. Not only that, but throughout my 6 years in this organization, this emblem serves as a reminder that the future of agriculture relies in the students, relies in its members. Without FFA members, we wouldn't understand. Purdue University often talks about how movies and celebrities depict agriculture as an environmentally destructive practice. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't know one farmer who doesn't treat their land like it's their own child. I mean, the amount of practices we have today to ensure that all of the salt doesn't just come out of the land, so then that land is unfarmable for a lot of years. Now, not only that, but the idea that FFA is not just for agriculturists and not just for farmers and ranchers. I come from a non-farming and ranching family, but yet I understand from other members the public importance of being an ag advocate. E.M. Tiffany, with the whole FFA creed, describes the future of agriculture. I wouldn't be standing where I am today without other FFA members bringing public awareness to agriculture. Even though movies depict it wrong, and celebrities don't have all the facts, even though people trust it, how do we know that that 98% knows what the 2% are doing to ensure that they're being fed? FFA members, it is a heavy weight on your back, but you are the future of agriculture. You are the idea of public awareness. Even if you're a past state officer, you're still absolutely an FFA member, and even throughout every day, you bring agricultural awareness to the public. Now, I want to leave you with one idea. Believing in the future of agriculture means to believe in the members. Means to believe that what we're learning in classes and understanding is what we're advocating for right now on this very stage, in those very seats, or anywhere else an FFA member might stand. Thank you.
As a non-traditional FFA member, what role have you played to promote agriculture?
As a non-traditional FFA member, which means I didn't grow up in a farming or ranching business, I still have an impact. It doesn't diminish what I do in FFA or the awareness I bring to farmer suicide rates. I personally am going to the University of Montana, go Grizz, to become a psychologist in the hopes of one day becoming a rural psychologist. I would not have chosen this without FFA. Without seeing past extemporaneous speeches talking about someone losing a loved one. I wish to prevent the farmer suicide risk, even as a non-traditional agriculturist. Thank you.
You have a very compelling story that you shared, and I think that speaks a lot to who you are. Hearing other extemp speeches talk about farmer suicide, what are some other challenges that you saw in this transition, not coming from a traditional background, into the FFA organization? What were some advocacy challenges that you also faced?
The biggest challenges I've faced is I personally really struggle in events like livestock, because I've never grown up with livestock, which is partially why I stick to the speaking events, to bring awareness, to be an ag advocate. I have a deep respect and understanding for those that can compete in events like livestock, agronomy, floriculture. That is personally a pathway that was not for me. I think understanding the future of agriculture means coming from the inside and knowing where your path leads. FFA is the most accepting organization I've ever been in. I think the biggest challenge I've ever faced within the organization is my own setback of not being an agriculturist, a traditional one at least. Thank you.
As we look to get the next generation into agriculture, the American Farm Bureau Federation put out a stat that 70% of all people in production ag actually have off-farm income. So we are seeing a certain trend of the traditional routes in the supporting agri-industries. Where do you see this next generation of industry professionals as they go out and advocate for agriculture? Where do you see trends going in for folks like you from non-traditional backgrounds that maybe want to get into ag?
I think a way that most people who are from backgrounds like me, non-traditional, is through urban agriculture. I mean, I know many friends in the city where I came from that are now involved in FFA because we got a chapter at our high school and they have pigs, steers, all of that amazing things, but it's most important that they're in a city. How are they doing this? So, being an ag advocate from Montana, I talk to my friends from California. They say oftentimes that they have little slots for farming and growing. I know agriculture, and I know that it doesn't have to be many acres of land, but rather it can be a small box. A seed planted can be one that's grown into anything. That 2% feeds the 98. Thank you. Thank you guys very much. Have a great day.
Let's give a round of applause to those extemporaneous speakers.